Nice to be with you. I'm particularly gratified to hear your affirmation this morning. And the prayer was truly an invocation of that fearlessness that must be based on trust, that must be based on those principles that we know that, there's only one thing happening, and it happens through us according to our ability to reveal it. Otherwise, it's just a great idea. And so we have principles for a reason. We have principles so that we learn them, and that's why we're here. Otherwise, we'd be, doing something else. But here we are. And so that must mean that we're ready to be even more fearless, that we're ready to learn how to be in the joy of life no matter what. And that's a tall order in 2020. There's so much going on. And it appears to be so frightening or dangerous. And much of it is frightening and dangerous. And yet, ad noca, as they say, and yet we are asked to know the truth anyway. That's the challenge of this call of unity. We're not called a maybe sometimes spiritual tradition. We're not called a, mostly us all tradition. We're not called anything else. We're called unity. That is the core principle. Oneness. One with the source, one with creation, and one with all that is. Not just the stuff we like, not just the people we agree with, but all that is. And I'm not very good, those of you who know me would know that this is true, that I'm not very good at making nice. Some of you are grinning. I see you understand that. And you probably understand it for yourself, and you understand it for me. Because I have found that when I am making nice, I am not being my authentic self. Not that I'm not nice, not that it's not possible to be nice, but when I'm making nice, to please someone else, to fit in, to, stand with the crowd. It's the 13-year-old challenge, right? I have a 13-year-old granddaughter and a 16-year-old granddaughter and a 12-year-old grandson, and they are all trying to figure this out. How much making nice do we have to do? All the time, they think. They think we have to just do everything we can, what we wear, what we eat, what we talk about, what we look like. We've got to fit in with the crowd, right? It's a hard time. Tom, you've got all these boys. I know more about it from the girl perspective, but nonetheless, I raised a son. I remember what the making nice is like. It is not easy. I remember it from myself. The horrible things that we think we've done or we are. We think we're the only ones, and we're not. We all go through these stages. And there are stages of consciousness that constantly are in flow in our life. And our beloved children must navigate this moment that we're navigating again, 2020. They must navigate that for a couple, 3 years, just in their own personal scope. Even if they're not paying attention to what's out there. They're just dealing with what's in here and, what's out there in their own narrow sphere. But what's going on out there that we're looking at, fires, politics, the world on fire, right? The politics are on fire. It's just, there's so much everywhere. The world's getting hotter. The waters are getting bigger. All of those things. People are getting more nervous. It's easy to get more scared, more focused on protection. How do we protect ourselves against all this? And we build walls and we build, have locks and we, stay away from there. And we don't do that until we remember again these principles, that there's a unity. Oh, that we're part of this unity, as the prayer that Hope brought us. And as the song, I am as God created, in the light and the love and the glory. And guess what? It's not just me. So are you. And so are we all. Even those people who, when we forget ourselves, we can tend to judge. When we forget who we are, we can tend to, make disparaging remarks about, or talk about when will it ever, and all of that. And so we all fall into that because we're part of this collection called humanity that affect each other. And we do. Each thought that each of us has contributes to the whole, because we are the whole. We're in the whole all the time. And as you know, a speck of one ingredient affects the whole. So each of us affects it all. And that's pretty scary sometimes if you can hear what's in my head. Because what if every thought I'm having affects the whole? So that certainly brings to me the necessity, when I remember it myself, to be conscious of what I'm thinking, to think the life I want to live. Now, I'm no paragon of virtue, really. I have a great teaching, which I greatly practice. Sometimes I horribly fail. But the good news is that now, because the mission is to use all moments for good, right? We need to use all moments to wake ourselves up again. Then I remember to wake up and I go, oh my God, I was just gossiping about her. That's really terrible. And then I have to say, I'm sorry. Now, Tom and Hope and I are going to help with that in a week. Next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, we're going to help. And we invite all of you to come and tell your friends there's room for 100 or more people on our Zoom call, because we're going to practice that really powerful and beautiful practice called Ho'oponopono, which is really a deep authenticity building experience of forgiveness, not just, oh, I'm sorry, not just like, but really it's like, oh my gosh, please forgive me. I just forgot myself. I love you. I don't want to be like that. That isn't who I really am. Thank you. So if you, like me, ever fall into that hole and forget yourself and start focusing on the trials and tribulations of this moment of your life or our lives, please come on Wednesday and get a deep dose of a very simple, practical tool. So I was in a kind of funny mood when Harker wrote and said, hey, what's your talk title? What are you talking about on Sunday? And I just wrote it just as it came out, I'm going to talk about change, and I have a Buckminster Fuller quote on the bottom of all my emails. And so that's the first thing that came to my mind, because it's so important for us to remember right now that you don't change reality by fighting against it. If you want a new reality, go create a new model, and the old one will become obsolete. Buckminster Fuller. I love that quote because it reminds me time and time again that it's really up to me how I experience this life. And if I'm going to indulge in the ordinary conversation about how hard life is, then it's my just dessert to experience it that way. My choice, really. So I said, a geodesic dome. And I wrote that and I went, why? And so I wrote, why, for heaven's sakes? And I was just like walking myself through, Spirit said a geodesic dome. And I said, well, why? Why do you ever get messages? They just like pop in uninvited. Call your aunt. Really? But I feel so guilty. I haven't called her in 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years. Those messages come on purpose. They are part of this magnificent moment that's shepherding us through the narrows that we're in right now. Geodesic dome, why? So I start unpacking it in my head. Triangles. It's made of triangles. Now, I always thought Buckminster Fuller invented it, but in fact, during the research that I was doing last night after I got home from the family reunion, thinking about now, why am I talking about geodesic domes? It was revealed that there was a German mathematician that invented the shape, but he didn't call it a geodesic dome. But he invented the shape. He didn't invent it. He discovered it. No, I don't think we invent anything. I think we find something and put it together and eureka, there it is. And so he created that, and then it follow. He never called it anything. And then, but an architect that he knew, or that knew him, happened to be in America in the university where Buckminster Fuller was, 80 years later or 40 years later, some time that works mathematically. And when he met Buckminster Fuller, he told him about it. Now, the guy who discovered it didn't say, now you need to do this because then something's going to happen that you're going to need it. It just was the synchronicity of life, which is always what's happening. Creativity is always happening. Only we don't understand it. It's not just like painting or writing a book. It's like the unseen side of things are constantly weaving in and out of our life, creating possibilities. And the more we lean into the possibility, then the more possible it becomes. That's just the way the law works. The more energy we put into peace, the more peaceful we feel. The more energy we put into judgment, the more judgment we feel. It's just the law. Can't be otherwise. And so learning to be authentic really means knowing what are we investing in. And so in the thing, my daughter's a potter, and among other things, lots of things. But I thought, we're all making molds with our thoughts. Do we know what the molds are that we're making? Do we know what we're shaping it for? What are we building our mold for? Is it for happiness, which is a reaction to life, which is happiness is a great thing, and joy is even greater? Because joy is an emergent thing. It's a quality of life. Happiness is a choice, and it can lead us to leaning into those things that bring us into experiences that allow the joy that is within us to emerge. Oh my gosh, there's so much I would love to talk about in terms of creativity. I spent most of the weekend doing a family reunion, including many things I never thought I would do, like driving my ex-husband and his wife and my son's mother-in-law up to the family reunion. And I jokingly said, because there's been times when we haven't gotten along, to put it mildly. And it never occurred to me that we would be in the relationship we're in now, which is sort of, we're all family now. And I said out loud, well, we can go together. I'm happy to drive, and let's sing camp songs. Tom would love this. I wish you'd been there, because I'll tell you, we were not always on the right key or on the same key, but nonetheless, we had a good time singing camp songs. And since we're all sort of the old age, same old age, we could remember some of those funny old camp songs. Even the oldest one amongst us remembered, oh, my darling, oh, my darling. And here we are driving along singing camp songs. What does that have to do with geodesic domes or molds? It has everything to do with it, because we were leaning in to connecting, not leaning into how am I going to get through this ride, or what will I do if that person says that. We were leaning into a possibility. We weren't complaining about the things, and God knows we all have plenty of things to complain about, should we want to do that. We weren't. We were saying, how are you? We were caring. We have not been evacuated, but we were before, and we actually all lived together for 2 weeks. Now there's a pure miracle. So we were leaning into those things that created more of the way we want to live, which is more joyfully. So geodesic dome, if you look it up, it is the strongest, the lightest space creating shape that there is. Really, just think about it. The triangle is the sharp, it's got these sharp edges, but it's the strongest shape there is. It's very hard to collapse a triangle because of the shape. The pressure is diffused to all of its sides. When you put all those triangles together and it naturally creates one of these, it's almost an indestructible. I suppose, if something like a meteor fell on it, it might collapse, but, it's very hard to break. And I thought, well, how does that work for us? How do we become more fearless and more authentic, like a geodesic dome? How? Well, we have to know what our principles are. There's 3 sides. What are your 3 principles? What are the things that you anchor your faith on? How do those principles replicate themselves and create not a place to hide, but a sanctuary for yourself that's called you and your space? How do you become resilient to all of the plethora of unpleasant possibilities that there are out there? Not to protect, they're pretty transparent, geodesic domes. I've never seen one actually that has plywood on it. You can see through them in most of the applications, but imagine your life is like a geodesic dome. You see in, people see in, you see out. There's all these different facets, but they're made of the same 3 angles. What are they in your life? What are the 3 things that you believe no matter what? So that when the unity of who we are gets challenged by the news, and heaven knows this week has certainly been full of challenging news, how do you not fall into that hole that says, well, or, oh, not another one? How do we not do that? So I thought I'd bring you some questions to ask yourself. And since I was up in Lake Almanor, where my son just bought some property and we were there to celebrate this moment, he showed me that the apartment that the cottage he lived in when he worked in Lake Almanor 20 years ago, while he was new in his scientific career, that place is now a resort. And there's 5 cottages and 2 houses. And I went online last night. I looked them up and I wrote them a letter and said, you know what? I facilitate retreats and gatherings of people. And is it possible to get a group rate and rent your whole place? Because Spirit said to do that. It's like there is stuff we need to talk about deeply. That we need to spend some time and unpack how to overcome the fear we have. Because we all have it. how to stay faithful to the principles we believe in, because we do believe in them. Only we forget, fall asleep again. How do we not fall asleep so much and be more authentic more? Those are the questions. So I'm hoping that I'm going to do something about that. I'm hoping that I'm not going to fall asleep and say, oh, how could I do that? That's so big. Come on. Get over your fear, for goodness sakes, I say to myself. So I used to have a radio show, and I'm going to have one. And I know you got the announcement that it was going to happen on Friday, but I had to cancel it because I wasn't ready. The technology didn't work on either end, and it was causing too much stress. And I actually cared more about doing it feeling authentic than I did about, well, I have to do it because I said I would, which is my over responsibility gene at play. I lost a tooth a couple of weeks ago. I'm in the process of getting that fixed. Now, you know, it would be very easy for me to say I can't do any public speaking because I can't hide the fact that I lost this tooth. But you know what? That doesn't matter to me. What matters is, can I show up anyway? So when I had the radio show that I had in the 80s, it was called The Good News Show. And there's a component of the Good News Show that's going to come up in Speaking of Peace, which is going to start in a couple of weeks online on Fridays at noon, and you'll hear about it. But I started the Good News Show with the same question every time, and I'm going to ask you. And I'm not going to ask you to answer it, but I want you to answer it for yourself, but not for us. And so I started the show by saying, towards the end of his life, someone asked Albert Einstein, what is the most important question facing humanity today? And he said, are you ready? It's a funny question. He said, is the universe friendly? Ooh, I wasn't nearly as conscious then as I am now. And I went, well, that's kind of a funny question. And then I started thinking about it, and I knew that it was a good question. And today I understand that it is a pivotal, fundamental, top of the pyramid kind of question. Woo! It's fantastic. It is such a simple question. You can ask a 5-year-old. To them, yes, it's almost always friendly to a child that age, before they've adopted their parents' fear or anger or worry or whatever the thing they adopt. So when we believe that the universe isn't friendly, what do? You know, we protect ourselves. We expect the worst. We look at everything as a trouble it's about to happen. When the universe isn't friendly, what is it? It's fearful. It's dangerous. I've experienced life that way. I don't know about you. I've had a time in my life when I had to be so strong that I had to be impervious to poverty, to criticism, to danger. And the power of poverty and criticism and danger is not to punish us. It's not to rattle our cages or make us nervous wrecks. The power of those things and every challenge that we have when we believe that the universe is not friendly is the universe trying to wake us up and let something greater emerge. It's here to tell us that's not the truth. If we can say, as we did when Starr read the principles of unity, if we can say that everything is what it is, I pulled out today Unity's Statement of Social Action, thanks to Tom, who sent it to me about a year ago. It's all there. Please read it. Please read it. It says we're one, and whenever we forget that, we're out of our authenticity. We're in hell. But we're in heaven, heaven being a state of mind and hell also being a state of mind. When we're in heaven, we remember that no matter what it looks like, it's God in action. It's the one thing showing up to the best of our ability to reveal it, right? So when we hear ourselves in some disparaging way about anything, we're in hell. We've forgotten ourselves. So I'm going to give you these 4 questions, and then I'm going to read 4 quotes by Charles Fillmore as the answers. And I'd really love to spend a whole weekend just talking about this and listening and practicing and unpacking it and exploring it and listening to it. So the first question is, do you believe the universe is friendly? And what Fillmore said is, and before I say what Fillmore said, when you wake up in the morning, is your primary energetic like, oh, wow, another good day? Or let me just make it even easier. Wow, another day. Or is it, oh, wow, another day? Therein lies the answer to, is the universe friendly? You can tell by what your normal pattern of waking up is. And here's what Fillmore said, and I love it, and I'm sure you will understand why, and you probably will too. And Fillmore said, I fairly sizzle with zeal and energy and enthusiasm, eager to do what ought to be done by me today. I do, most of the time. Oh my God. So the second question is, in the main, which is, I love that phrase. It's not used in America, but I had a British friend who used to use it. In the main, is your state of being, moving towards the thing that you intend, that you feel calling you, that's bringing you joy? Do you move towards that? Is like that the main motivation of your life? Moving towards possibility and vision? Or in the main, are you running away, hiding from, trying to resist the thing that scares the heck out of you or makes you mad or worried? It's another way to look at of Einstein's question. So just ask yourself, and if you don't know, think about how you wake up. It'll be a clue. So what Fillmore says about this, what's your main thing, is we know that the kingdom of heavens, or the kingdom of God, is not a place in the sky, but an ideal state in creative mind, ready to be ushered into the minds of men and women. He didn't say that, but we can today. So his response is, heaven and hell exists here in our own mind, in our creative mind, he said. Why is it creative? Is it creative all by itself? Well, its nature is creative, and we get to use it. And in fact, we can't escape using it. We are using our creative mind 24/7. And if you have compulsive thinking at any time in your day or night, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just like constantly working. And so are we tapping in to the part of it that is life affirming? Or are we tapping into the part of it that's reacting to what's going on around us? Because that's our choice. And creativity can be expressed in all sorts of ways. That part is up to us. Tom sings, Hope prays, Harker writes, I talk. What do you do? What's your creative bent? So then the third question is, what is calling you now? What is calling you? What is saying, oh, for goodness sakes, just come on. I'm going to show you something. I meant to get it before, but it's right here. Shine brightly. Can you see that? I bought that for a grandchild who is trying to figure out what that means. So what is calling you? Are you daring to listen? What is the brain doing with that call? Is it first responding with fear, or is it first responding with possibility thinking? Don't judge yourself. We all have all of those things. Just notice and know that if it is mostly responding with fear, you can change that consciously by planting the affirmation of the day. I am fearless as I live my authenticity. Just say it. Fake it till you make it, as they say. And the third question, how can I begin doing what I'm called to do now? How, if I don't know what to do, how can I begin? We all have some part of the answer we could share. We all have our own technique. It would be great to learn that, to make a flyer about that, one of those big banners that hang up in the kitchen, that says, love, laugh, tickle each other, be silly, Let's create something like that. But anyway, answer it for yourself. How can I begin? Because you have the answer within you. Remember, we're one with the whole. We're one with the one. The answer lives within you already. It's waiting for you to ask the question and sincerely and authentically surrender to it. Here's a quote I got this week, which really helped me with the enormous challenges. I had enormous challenges this week on many fronts. And I live my life with zeal, even so, because the other way just sucks. It just hurts too much. I don't want to live the other way anymore. So the fourth question is, how can I begin? And here's what Charles Fillmore says about it. Every man who accomplishes things sees first in his mind what he wishes to do. He puts away all doubt. Oh, now there's a big clue. Begone, get thee behind me, Jesus said to the devil, get thee behind me. Take this cup, it's not for me. Somebody once wrote me this nasty email. And it really, honestly, I know I'm not perfect and I know I'm a little in your face sometimes, but this email was really her stuff. And she wrote it to me, and in some stroke of insight, I returned it to her with a little memo that said, I'm sorry, I think you sent this to me by mistake. I believe it's yours. I sent it right on back because it wasn't mine. But there was a time when everything like that I gobbled up because I felt so terrible about myself. I thought every funny look on somebody's face meant I was wrong. So if you have, as every human being does, self-esteem issues, just practice that little line in your head the next time somebody says, what are you wearing that color for? You say, I'm sorry, I don't think that's for me. I think that's for you, honey. Let go with love, as they say in the program. Just let go with love. So to go on, Fillmore says, he puts away all doubt. God, just think of the time you'd have on your hands when you put away all doubt, right? Boy, it makes no difference how small or how large the thing you want to do may be. What's yours? What do you want to do? What mine is? Peace on earth in my lifetime and a unity of nations. That's mine. It's in front of me to do. I'm not the only one, thank God, who has that, but I actually believe it. I believe it completely now. I believe that it's mine to do, and I believe it's entirely possible. And there's no good reason why it isn't possible right now. It just takes us shifting our perception just a little bit. So There's no difference whether it's big or small. If you have unlimited confidence in your ability to do it, you will do it. So our job is to put in our brain those messages that affirm that. Because the brain has these little receptors that are plump with those things that we feed it. And when we don't feed something, they shrivel up, those little neurotransmitters. So create a new model, and the old model becomes obsolete. So I'll end with a quote from another giant who I had the privilege to meet, also at New Dimensions. I don't know if Justine is here, but I swear my life changed dramatically. I met Buckminster Fuller on my first day of work, and towards the last of my working time, we had a board meeting to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of New Dimensions, and Joseph Campbell was on the board, and he's sitting beside me. Joseph Campbell, of all people. And Phil Catalfo, the engineer, said, Barbara, you have too much awe. It separates you with people. Get rid of your awe. You're here. That's because you're supposed to be. Get over it. Some of the best advice I ever had. Anyway, Joseph Campbell says, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. So if you want to shift from believing the universe is friendly or to, wow, another day, then look at the cave where your fears live and know that that cave holds the treasures that are going to set you free, that are going to bring you into your authentic self, where you don't care if you make nice enough for everybody else, where you don't care if you're appropriately calm and quiet when you're talking. Just let it out. Just, wow, be yourself. It's great. It feels great. And getting older makes it easier. But I wished I'd known this when I was younger. So for those of us who are younger, life is fantastic. Thank you. Amplify the good and make peace with the rest. That's my personal slogan. I share it. You're welcome to use it. Thank you very much. I love being with you. Knowing that the light of God enfolds us and protects us and is all around us, and truly, in fact, all is well, I understand that growth requires a temporary surrender of security. And I am fully supported by the light of God within me, the love of God around me, and the protection of God that goes before me, so that I can release this, even temporarily, the comfort zone of the way I've done it up until now, so that I can lean into this life force within me that's calling me to more good, more joy, so that I can consciously choose in the face of all of it to know that underneath and within, it's all here to make me choose when I'm ready. So I know that for me. I know that it's using all moments for good because they are here for good. I give thanks. I send my heartfelt love and appreciation to everything and everyone that has been part of waking up the planet at this point, and everyone that is an object calling us for complete unconditional love no matter what. We might do well to know that all of us deserve to be healthy, happy, prosperous, kind, courageous, to live this unity. And so Let us seek to understand more than to be understood. Let us seek to love no matter what. This day, going forward, let us know that we can choose to live in heaven on earth and put doubt and worry and blame behind us. And that is the power of this presence that lives in every cell of every one of us. Life is magnificent. And making the best of it and making peace with it sets us free. I give thanks. I let it be. I let it be. I let it grow in me. And in each of us, I see this same seed, plant, flower, fruit, food for nurturing our hearts, our minds, each other, and the planet that is our home, begging us to see ourselves and use each moment for greatness. Thank you, life. Thank you. Thank you.